Welcome back, everybody. Early last month, it was reported that the former MMA fighter and actress Gina Carano had filed a lawsuit against Lucasfilm and its parent company, Disney. Also, Huckleberry Industries was named in the suit. I'm not exactly sure who they are, but I'm guessing they're some sort of subsidiary of Disney. The lawsuit stems from the 2021 firing from the show The Mandalorian. Now, this happened after Carano refused to take down some tweets that people found objectionable. Gina's position is that she was bullied, discriminated against, and retaliation taken against her by the leadership of Lucasfilm and by extension the parent company Disney. But how accurate are her claims? Does Gina have a case against one of the biggest studios in Hollywood? Let's deep dive into this and take a look. In a short time, in a galaxy not so far away, defendants made it clear that only one orthodoxy in thought, speech, or action was acceptable in their empire, and that those who dared to question or failed to fully comply would not be tolerated. Believe it or not, this is the introduction to the lawsuit filed by Gina Carano. I have to admit, this is low-key hilarious. Anyway, a bit of background on Gina's involvement in The Mandalorian. Back in December of 2018, it was announced, or possibly even leaked, that Gina Carano had been cast in the Disney Plus original Star Wars show, The Mandalorian, as a character named Cara Dune. Previously, Carano had small parts in movies like Fast and Furious 6 and Deadpool. She mainly played characters that were short on lines, but heavy on fighting. Needless to say, the role of Cara Dune was going to be her big breakout role. When The Mandalorian premiered in 2019, it was deemed a massive hit for the streaming giant and instantly put Disney Plus on the map. In the fourth episode, named Sanctuary, we get our first look at the character of Cara Dune. One thing that kind of took people by surprise was that Dune was no damsel in distress. In fact, she was pretty badass. So much so that the character fought with the protagonist Din Djarin, also known as Mando. Cara Dune was strong and capable, who was easily an equal to the main character as far as badassery. Yet Dune was a fully realized character, or at least she was going to be. Cara Dune was a warrior, and Gina Carano perfectly executed that role. Her past experience with MMA helped her, and so did the fight scenes with the other movies that she was in. The audience reacted well to the character and Carano's performance. There were some that claimed that Carano couldn't act and she was a little bit too wooden. I don't know, I kind of saw it as her just being stoic, strong and silent. Gina reprised her role in season 2 of the show, and again, she earned favorable attention for her performance. During this period of time, a spin-off had been planned called Rangers of the New Republic. This spin-off was going to feature Gina in a much bigger capacity than The Mandalorian. This came to an end in 2021 after Carano tweeted the following: "Jews were beaten in the streets not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even children. Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where the Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them for simply being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views?" Lucasfilm fired Gina Carano shortly after this tweet. Politics aside, I actually found the character of Cara Dune to be a breath of fresh air. With Gina's work in MMA, I found her to be a very credible shock trooper, which is what Cara Dune was. It really didn't take me out of the scene when she was kicking butt against every stormtrooper that she found, and heck, even the Mandalorian. And of course, even though Cara Dune was a complete and total badass, she still had qualities like empathy and kindness, and you could see that with her interactions with Grogu. For me personally, I think this is how you write a strong female character. It kind of makes me wonder if Kathleen Kennedy was a little bit jealous because Cara Dune pretty much was the character that she set out to create with Rey. She wanted a strong female protagonist, and that's pretty much what they got with Cara Dune. We all know the tweet that got Gina fired from Disney, but a lot of context is missing from the news articles and a lot of the videos. In my estimation, context is key when it comes to things. The first piece of context missing is the time when this happened. This Twitter war between Gina Carano and leftist Twitter trolls came about during the time of COVID, when everybody's anxiety and fear were at an all-time high. Also, this was during the time of the murder of George Floyd by Derek Chauvin, a police officer in Minneapolis. During this period of time, Gina was getting tweets like, "Say ACAB, please." ACAB is an initialism for all cops are bastards. Also, another tweet, "You're a racist if you completely ignore the BLM movement and don't support it. Being silent puts you on the side of the racist and oppressors." And, "Gina, if you're not a racist, then show us. Support and donate to Black Lives Matter. Use your platform and voice to stand up against the police who are committing crimes against the people they are meant to protect. And if 12-year-olds on Twitter can do this, you can too." Damn, I guess people on Twitter really don't believe in capitalizations. Of course, according to these Twitter people, this wasn't trolling but education, as explained by this tweet. These aren't trolls, these are people trying to educate you so you can get on the right side of history. Gina's responses were actually pretty civil and chill for the most part. During this period of time, she did refer to these quote-unquote educators as cowards and bullies, but she didn't directly call anyone this, just kind of a generalization. Gina also got a fair amount of support from people who called these so-called educators SJW trolls. Gina responded with a tweet about a lone German soldier who refused to give that special stiff-arm salute back in 1936 Germany. This was meant to demonstrate standing up to bullying. Of course, people really didn't take it that way. Carano did tweet about the dangers of COVID-19 lockdowns and the effects it has on mental health. She also advocated for opening churches during the lockdown and the right to work during the pandemic. At the time, this stance was pretty controversial, but now that COVID is kind of more or less like a flu than a death sentence, it almost seems kind of comical that the country had been on lockdown. There was also a call for Gina to start putting her preferred pronouns in her Twitter bio. Gina had tweeted that after speaking with Pedro Pascal, she understood why people are putting them in their bios, but she just chose not to do so. She eventually did cave, a little bit, and added the very controversial words boop, bop, beep in the place of pronouns. This went about as well as you would think. The SJW educators lost their collective shit, and they were very vocal about it. It wasn't like it was all hate against Gina on Twitter. There were some messages of support with phrases like, "I stand with Gina," and "You're my hero." These were tweets from people who identified as trans, by the way. But the Twitter trolling continued with memes of Raymond Redding from The Blacklist saying, "Well, I think we're just gonna have to kill her." And, "Oh, you sad, pathetic idiot," when Carano expressed her worries about the 2020 election. When asked about it on the platform, Gina responded with, "I feel nothing but love for my fellow Americans, no matter who they felt in their heart they needed to vote for." Soon afterwards, Gina posted that ill-fated tweet that got her fired. Disney didn't even call her to the office or call her in general. They tweeted she was no longer employed by Lucasfilm on the social media app. Damn, that's bold. The context, in my opinion, was Gina Carano was harassed on Twitter for months before this ill-fated tweet. She tried to be civil and turn the other cheek, so to speak. But she had a huge amount of pressure to succumb to whatever the issue was of the time, because the following week it would change. SJW trolls wanted her to support who they support and condemn who they wish to condemn. I know I wouldn't have shown the patience that she did if I had been placed in her situation. And I think that really goes for a lot of us. Also, and this is just my opinion, if you feel like you have to pressure people to have the same beliefs that you do, you're not an activist at that point. You're part of an angry mob. If getting fired from one of the most popular shows on streaming wasn't bad enough, her show Rangers of the New Republic was also scrapped. Not to mention that she was dropped from her talent agency, United Artists, and entertainment attorney. To put it simply, she was blacklisted. There is, of course, speculation that Kathleen Kennedy or the then Disney CEO, Bob Chapek, had poisoned the waters, kind of making Gina Carano untouchable by other studios. Now, of course, this may or may not have happened, who's to say? But if it did, it would have been behind closed doors or maybe even a phone call or text. Studio executives wield a lot of power, and they're free to pursue it without many consequences. They are truly the queens and kings of their own kingdom, and they all talk to one another. Hollywood is a very small town when it comes down to it, and it's all built on relationships. That's why it's hard for a lot of people to break in, and why there's so many Nepo babies. Also, this is a prime reason why an untalented filmmaker or writer will get a job that's pretty high profile, and everybody's left scratching their head going, how the hell did they get this job? These untalented people normally know somebody, and that's how they're able to get work. But of course, this does work in reverse as well. And with one phone call, they can ruin somebody's life. When it comes down to it, I actually kind of despise Hollywood and how movies are made nowadays. I wish there was an alternative. Post The Mandalorian, Gina has not had a chance to find a lot of work in the acting field. In 2022, Gina starred in the film Terror on the Prairie alongside fellow MMA fighter Cowboy Donald Cerrone. The movie was produced by the conservative show The Daily Wire and Bonfire Legend. The Daily Wire, of course, is the conservative political talk show hosted by Ben Shapiro, aka Dr. Dreidel. Full admission here, I'm not the biggest fan of Ben and his views, but having the guts to call yourself Dr. Dreidel is freaking hilarious. You gotta give him props for that. Carano followed this up in 2022 with yet another film produced by The Independent named My Son Hunter as Agent Hound. Basically, this is a hit piece on both Hunter and the President Joe Biden. It revolves around Hunter Biden, his alleged affairs and foreign business dealings, and his history of drug addiction. For the record, I haven't seen either of these films, but I'm glad to know that Gina is still working, even if it is in shitty conservative movies. Aside from these two projects, Gina Carano hasn't been making much waves. She seems to be living a quiet life, up until this year. Like what I indicated in my intro, Carano has filed a lawsuit against Lucasfilm and its parent company, Disney. Now, mind you, despite popular belief, it is actually really hard to sue a multinational conglomerate like Disney. They have more money than most of us will ever see in a lifetime. And they have employed a small army of attorneys worth their weight in gold. That leaves the question, how can Gina Carano afford to file a lawsuit against one of the biggest and most powerful companies on the planet? Let's think about this for a second. Maybe she can find an eccentric billionaire who loves taking big gambles. Maybe this person believes in free speech above all else and really isn't that fond of Disney or their CEO. Enter Elon Musk. In April of 2022, Elon Musk started pursuing the purchase of Twitter, who at the time was a publicly traded company. Musk began buying shares in the company until he became the largest shareholder with 9.1% ownership stake. There was a little back and forth in the process, with the board members responding with a poison pill strategy to resist a hostile takeover, and Musk trying to back out of the deal, blaming that Twitter had breached their agreement by not cracking down on spam bot accounts. By April of the same year, the deal had been finalized and Elon owned Twitter. Musk proceeded to take the company private and rebranded the company from Twitter to X for some reason. He also fired half of the employees and demanded the rest to pick up the slack and commit to being, quote unquote, extremely hardcore. You know, the usual stuff when you're playing Monopoly with real companies. In August of 2023, Elon tweeted out, quote, "If you were unfairly treated by your employer due to posting or liking something on this platform, we will fund your legal bill. No limit. Please let us know," end quote. Now, there doesn't seem to be any indication that Gina Carano and Elon Musk are friends or travel in the same social circles, but somehow Carano took Elon up on his generous offer. With Elon Musk fitting the bill, this pretty much puts Gina and Disney on equal footing when it comes to money and resources. I'm reasonably sure that Daddy Elon will employ a small army of very capable attorneys to make Carano's case for her. Elon also has motivation to give Disney a black eye due to the company pulling their advertising from X. At the Deal Book Conference in late 2023, Elon's response to Bob Iger's decision to pull the advertisement was the following, and there is some bad language, by the way.
You hope... don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's gonna try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f*** yourself. But go f*** yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
That's how I feel.
Musk also said if the company fails because of an advertiser boycott, it will fail because of an advertiser boycott. And that will be what bankrupts the company. And that's what everybody on Earth will know. Let the chips fall where they may. At this point, I'm reasonably sure that some sort of reconciliation might have happened between the moguls, but that is pure speculation on my part. But Elon being Elon, he could definitely hold a grudge. And this would be a perfect opportunity to beat Iger, even if it's paying for Gina's lawsuit. I've read the lawsuit, and as lawsuits go, it is entertaining as hell. I'll do my best to try to link it to the video. If you get a chance, I would recommend reading it. There's about 60 pages or so, but it goes pretty quickly. And when it comes down to it, the suit was actually pretty eye-opening, especially when it comes to Gina's treatment. Allegedly, of course. If these claims are true, I would say Lucasfilm seems like a pretty hostile work environment with a lot of retaliation. Let's look at some of these allegations. When it comes down to things, this case isn't necessarily about freedom of speech. It's a wrongful termination suit. Carano and her attorneys assert that Gina was posting on social media away from the workplace and not on company time. It's not in the suit, but in my opinion, Gina's Twitter profile is not advertised as an official Disney account. Gina does not claim she's speaking for her employer. We know what the basis of this lawsuit is, but I want to go over some of the factual allegations that I found interesting. This really won't include the stuff I've already mentioned. It's more of a studio's reaction to Gina Carano and her tweets, because they're pretty interesting. In September of 2018, Gina Carano was cast as Cara Dune for the Disney Plus show The Mandalorian. Despite the character's popularity, Carano's master contract had her salary at $25,000 per episode for season 1. Gina did get a one-time bonus of $5,000 to come back for season 2, along with the $25,000 per episode. Gina Carano did meet all the obligations under the terms of the agreement between her and Disney. In October, the executive producer of The Mandalorian, Jon Favreau, informed Carano that Disney had greenlit a spin-off show titled Rangers of the New Republic. Favreau also told her that her life is about to change. Carano was going to be paid between $150,000 to $250,000 per episode for a period of 6 years. Like The Mandalorian, this new show would have been between 8 and 10 episodes per season. Okay, so here are some of the good parts. This part of the lawsuit named Defendants Engage in Harassment of Their Own. Gina Carano alleges that Lucasfilm subjected her to a long phone call demanding explanations. This would actually be multiple phone calls. They also criticized Carano for not embracing what some see as mandatory solidarity with the vocal element of the transgender activist community. The defendants, that's going to be Disney and Lucasfilm, required Carano to meet with representatives of GLAAD, which stand for Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Discrimination. According to the suit, Carano had a very positive discussion with 2 of the representatives during a 90-minute Zoom meeting. The representatives from GLAAD, they provided positive feedback to the defendants about Carano. Disney wanted to have Carano issue a public apology. They even went so far as to try to convince Carano's publicist to force Gina to issue a statement. She declined to issue a statement, but proposed an alternate statement instead. Carano attempted to donate to a GoFundMe page that she believed was in support of the transgendered community. But when she opened up the link, she discovered the fund had been allegedly made by a Lucasfilm creative and was directly against Carano. This fund accused Carano of being a bigoted actress. Gina, she decided against donating to this particular fund. She informed Lucasfilm of this, and they denied any employee involvement in this GoFundMe page. The fund had been changed soon after. Instead of bigoted, they described her as being ignorant on the site. Lucasfilm allegedly required Carano to participate in a Zoom call with Lucasfilm president and noted feminist Kathleen Kennedy, with 45 employees who identify as part of the LGBTQ+ community. The purpose of the meeting would be for Carano to endure harassment and humiliation. It was described as being a litmus test for Carano. Allegedly, the filmmaker and showrunner and former assistant to Harvey Weinstein, Leslie Headland, was going to be part of this call for some reason. I don't know what that reason is, but I don't know. Carano declined the Zoom call, despite Lucasfilm's insistence that this was for Carano to grow and learn. So basically, she would start using pronouns. Carano proposed a counteroffer to take 5 or 6 people to dinner so they could talk face-to-face instead of a Zoom call. Lucasfilm said no. Later on in the lawsuit, Carano's attorneys claim that around January of 2021, Carano accidentally received an email from Lynn Hale of Lucasfilm. This email mentioned that the hashtag of Fire Gina Carano was on Twitter and they'd be keeping an eye on it. This was part of an email chain that included the then Disney CEO Bob Chapek. This essentially sets Carano up to shift focus away from Disney doing business with China and the bad press it would generate. During this time, there was a lot of focus on China and human rights abuse of the indigenous Uyghur people. Sorry if I butchered that. Later, Carano did tweet about the results of the 2020 election, but it was without naming either candidate. She was just expressing concerns about the election process. Yeah, a little bit nutty, but some people think it was stolen. The next month, Carano posted her tweet after months of harassment online with an employer who seemed to enjoy this harassment toward Gina Carano. We know how the rest went. Here we are at the end of this epic journey. I did not mean for this to be this long, but there was so much information to go over. When it comes down to it, what do we make out of Gina Carano's lawsuit? I think this trial will be amazing. If nothing else, to see the inner workings of Lucasfilm. This may actually shed some light on what Kathleen Kennedy is like as a leader. It could either prove or disprove all the channels that have inside information onto the inner workings of Lucasfilm. See if any of that stuff is real or if it's all BS. Either way, I'm really excited, and I really hope it's televised. But of course, those are just my opinions, and I would love to hear yours. Feel free to express yourself in the comment section. And as always, fare thee well, my friends, and take care. Cue the music.